coordinates are locked in.
Look at the terrain reading, it's unstable.
Oh.
We have no other choice.
我知道谁是内鬼了。
All right, team, let's go over the plan again. We have to be extra careful this time.
Yes, it's right there. The simplest evidence. We have to believe it.
I saw yellow near the vents, right before the lights went out!
It wasn't me! I was in security camera!
I need to tell you about the doors, not the vents, not the panels, not the comms or the surfaces or anything we'd learned to watch for. The doors, the ones we walk through 30 times around without thinking, the ones that are supposed to open into exactly the room they've always opened into. This round they didn't. It started with Yellow. He went to open the door to navigation, his first task, star chart same as always, and the door opened into the cafeteria. Not the cafeteria adjacent to navigation, the main cafeteria. On the other side of the ship, Yellow stood in the navigation doorframe looking at the cafeteria tables and the overhead lights and the taskbar on the wall and said, very calmly, "This is not navigation." He closed the door, opened it again. Still the cafeteria. He came to find me. I tried the door myself. Cafeteria. I closed it, counted to 5, opened it again. Still cafeteria. Yellow said, "Should we go through?" I said I didn't know. We stood in the navigation corridor for a moment doing the calculation. Every other round we'd followed the thing. We'd gone into the rooms, finished the tasks, said the words. Following had worked. Following had been the right call every single time. I went through the door. Yellow followed. We were standing in the cafeteria. We turned around. The door behind us opened back into the navigation corridor. The door worked correctly from the inside, only wrong from the outside. Green hit the second wrong door in the weapons room. He went to exit into the corridor and came out in electrical. Green's response was to immediately check the corridor through the electrical door, which opened correctly into the electrical corridor, and then stand in electrical with his arms, his posture, squared toward the weapons room door and say, "Okay, the ship is doing something. The ship is routing us." He said it like he was briefing a squad. Like if he named it tactically, it would stop being supernatural. I respect that about Green even when it doesn't work. Blue mapped it immediately. Of course she did. She pulled up the ship schematic on her comm tab and started marking which doors were wrong and where they led. Within 10 minutes, she had 6 confirmed displacement events, 6 doors opening into the wrong rooms, and when she drew lines between each wrong door's origin and its destination, the lines crossed in the same place every time. A single point on the ship map. A room none of us had named yet, but all of us recognized. The room where the vote happened. The round before the first haunting. The room where it started. Nobody moved toward the room immediately. We stood in the corridor looking at Blue's comm tab and the converging lines, and nobody said what the room was even though we all knew. Cyan said, "It wants us to go there." Black said, "It's been wanting us to go there since episode 1. We keep going to other places first. White said, we needed to go to the other places first. And that was true. We weren't ready in round 1. We weren't ready in round 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I looked at the map on Blue's comm tab. I thought, are we ready now? I didn't know. I still don't. We kept hitting wrong doors while we deliberated. It wasn't stopping. Every few minutes someone would try to go somewhere and end up somewhere else instead. Cyan went to storage and came out in medbay. Black went to security and came out in admin. White went to comms, specifically to check the Amber Pixel, his private round ritual, and came out in the lower engine room. He stood in the engine room for a moment in the orange light. Then he walked back through the door. He didn't say what he felt standing there. He didn't have to. Green said, it's not just routing us toward the room, it's routing us through the memories. He said it quietly, which is how Green says the things he's actually thought through. Weapons to electrical. That's where I was when I hesitated. Navigation to cafeteria. That's where Yellow was when the vote was called. Comms to engine room. White was announcing when the engine room crewmate was mid-task. He looked at his blaster. It's making us walk through it again. The sequence. Blue said, not to punish us. Green said, no, to make sure we understand the whole shape of it, not just our piece. We went to the room, all 7 of us. Together, the way we'd been doing everything together since round 3 when we learned that together was the answer. The door that led to it was the admin door, the map room, the record room, the room where the ship keeps track of where everyone has been. It opened correctly, no displacement, just the admin room, waiting, lights on, map panel glowing its normal cool blue-white. We walked in. We stood in the room. We waited to understand why we were here. The admin map panel showed all 7 of our positions, little colored dots moving slightly as we shifted our weight, exactly where we were, and then an 8th dot appeared, not moving, stationary, positioned in the lower engine room, exactly where the crewmate had been standing when the meeting was called. The dot was the color of no one on our crew, a color I couldn't name. Not quite any color I'd seen on the ship before, like a color the system generated when it didn't have a name for what it was marking. Yellow said, is that them? Blue said, the ship is logging a presence in the engine room. Whether that's them or a system artifact, I can't. Yellow said, Blue. Blue stopped. Is that them? Blue looked at the dot. Yes, she said. I think that's them. The dot didn't move. It sat in the lower engine room on the map display and didn't move, and we stood around the admin panel and looked at it, and it looked back at us in the only way a dot on a map can look back at you, which is by being there when it shouldn't be and being exactly where you'd expect it to be if it was. We talked to the dot. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like 7 people crowding around an admin panel talking to a map marker. That is exactly what it was. Red went first. Me. Because red always goes first in the things nobody wants to go first in. I said, we know you're here. We've known for a while. We've been trying to do right by you. We haven't always known how. The dot didn't move, but the admin map panel's cool blue-white light shifted almost imperceptibly toward Amber. Just the edge of it? Just enough to notice if you were looking. One by one, the others spoke. Not scripted, not organized, just each person saying the thing they needed to say to a dot on a map that represented someone who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time and had never gotten to leave it properly. Green said, I had a clear line. I've said that before. I'm going to keep saying it until saying it stops feeling like it should change something. Cyan said, I counted well. I should have counted differently. Black said 3 words, just 3. I don't know which 3. He said them quietly and stepped back. His worm antenna was moving steadily. The amber light spread. Slowly. The way it had in communications in episode 3, but different. Warmer. Quieter. Less urgent. Like something settling rather than something trying to be heard. The 8th dot on the map panel began moving. Slowly. Not erratically. Deliberately. It moved from the engine room position across the map display, through the corridors, past the task rooms, through the paths a crewmate would walk, and it moved toward admin, toward us. And it stopped at the admin room marker on the map, where we were standing. It stayed there, on the admin marker, among our dots. 8 dots in admin on the map display, 7 of them us, one of them the color with no name. We stood in the room and the room was warm and amber and quiet. Yellow said, "Hi," very softly, like he was greeting someone who had just walked through the door. It was such a Yellow thing to say. It was so completely the right thing to say. Nobody laughed. Nobody almost laughed. We just stood in the warm amber admin room, and Yellow had said hi to someone who wasn't there, and it was the most normal, extraordinary thing that had happened on this ship in 6 rounds. The dot faded slowly, not like a signal lost, like a person leaving a room, the gradual absence of presence rather than a cut. The amber light faded with it. The admin panel returned to its cool blue-white. 7 dots, all of them us. The room was just the admin room again, but the map panel showed something new in the log at the bottom of the display. 1 entry. New timestamp. Position logged. Admin. Duration. Present. The ship had recorded it. The ship had given it a log entry. Not a color, not a name, just present. We finished the round. The doors worked correctly after that. Every door opened into the room it was supposed to. No more displacements. No more walking through navigation and coming out in the cafeteria. No more spatial arguments with a ship that was trying to show us the shape of something we'd only seen in pieces. The tasks got done. The task bar climbed. We moved through the ship carefully, each in our own rooms, each doing our own work, each carrying the weight of 6 rounds of accumulated knowing. Green did his tasks without checking whether the blaster was accessible. He hasn't checked in 3 rounds now. I've been counting. Taskbar hit 100. Victory screen. 6 rounds, 6 ghosts. 6 times the ship has held something we needed to face and waited for us to be ready to face it. I think about the doors. I think about how the displacement wasn't random. It was a tour. A guided walk through the specific sequence of moments that built toward a wrong vote. Yellow going to navigation and ending up in the cafeteria. Green going to weapons and ending up in electrical. White going to comms and ending up in the engine room. The ghost wasn't lost. The ghost was a docent. It was showing us the exhibition. But here's the thing. Here's the thing I keep coming back to every round now, like a door that only opens one way. We've had 6 hauntings, 6 different mechanics, 6 different ways of being reached by people we failed, and every single time, the haunting ended when we did the work, when we stayed in the room, when we said the words, when we followed the door even when it opened wrong. The ghosts didn't need us to be perfect. They needed us to be present. And the imposter on this ship, the living one, the one with a plan and a vote and a very careful performance of grief, has watched us learn that. 6 rounds of watching us become the kind of crew that follows the wrong door because following has always led somewhere true. And I think that's exactly the weapon they're going to use against us. Think about that. And tell me, when the next door opens wrong, will you know the difference between a ghost and a trap?